Hope everybody's doing well. We are looking at what is perhaps the most unique, inspired writing in all of the Bible this morning. We're looking at the Song of Solomon. And we'll read some of the text and talk about it. And we're just going to spend today on it. We won't take much time. I was just talking to Dwayne, and we were both saying we probably should have spent more time in Ecclesiastes, but at any rate, the profound statement, it is what it is, that's where we are. But the Song of Solomon has not completely been figured out, and I think perhaps God wrote it the way he did intentionally so that we wouldn't figure it all out. But it's a song about the attraction, the love, the desire between two people who are lovers, and it seems to portray to us God's sense of passion for us, for those who come to him. We know that in the New Testament, the church is seen as the bride of Christ, and he's the bridegroom, the one that everybody's waiting on. And there are a lot of folks who look at the Song of Solomon, and they see this as a prophetic view of the relationship of Jesus and the church, and I don't have any problem with that. But let's just do a little reading here. And I had notes and I left them in my office, so no problem. I shouldn't tell you that, should I? Because, he doesn't know what he's doing now. Oh, well, we'll see how much of this I can remember. But let's read together the first 4 verses. Who wants to read the first 4 verses of the Song of Solomon? And if you're really bashful, you better not. But who wants to read first 4 verses? Okay, PJ, she's not bashful.
The Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. May he kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Your oils have a pleasing fragrance. Your name is like purified oil. Therefore the maidens love you. Draw me after you, and let us run together. The king has brought me into his chambers. We will rejoice in you and be glad. We will extol your love more than wine. Rightly do they love you.
All right, this is just the first 4 verses. What are we talking about already? Love, kisses, the king bringing me into his chamber. Does that sound anything to you like the separation of the Holy of Holies, and now Jesus at his crucifixion, the Holy of Holies is opened up, and God has ushered in through his high priest, his own son, our right to come into the Holy of Holies and be in his presence. That I don't know about you, but immediately that's sort of what I'm thinking about. This is 8 chapters, and it was written, it's literature, but it's not just literature. It is inspired of God with a message. And it's written as though it might be either acted out or recited. And there are parts. There's Solomon's, the male lover's part, and there's the female. And there are even passages that appear to be prepared for a chorus to sing in between. Just like when you go to a play or a show and you've got the actors that are speaking their parts and then there's a chorus that says something. That's the way this seems to be structured. And so it's hard to approach this like any other section of Scripture where you kind of know, okay, this is what he's talking about here and this is what he's talking about there. This is poetry. This is poetry. Have you ever listened to a song and gone, I'm not sure what the lyrics of that song mean. Well, I don't quite understand that. And if you haven't done that, you haven't been listening, because there's some weird stuff out there. And this is a passage of Scripture that God has given us that portrays love and warmth and passion and compassion and desire, but it seems to me to do it all in the context of God and his desire for his people. After all, when you think about the creation, how did he create humanity? Tell me something about humanity as God created it. Sorry? He spoke the world into existence, but humanity he formed with his hands. He took dirt and he formed that into man and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. I don't think he did that with any other living creature, but he breathed into the handmade man the breath of life, and he became a living being, a living soul. How did he make the woman? Took part of Adam that he'd made with his hands, formed her into a woman, and what did he say about them? How were they made? In his image. Morally, what about Adam and Eve at the beginning? Absolute perfect. So there was perfection in the beginning. That perfection was messed up with sin, and God has been doing what he can ever since to get that back, to bring that back. That's been his desire, and it's no lightweight desire. His desire to have us as his eternal family is so great that he had a plan before the creation of the world to sacrifice his son to buy us back. And this 8 chapters seems to me to portray that passionate desire for oneness with us. You can make of it what you will, but that's how I'm looking at it. In verse 5, we read some interesting things about this female lover. I'm black but lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not stare at me because I'm swarthy. What does swarthy mean? Anybody? What's that? Tan, dark complected. Yes, somebody who's swarthy, a swarthy guy is dark, or a swarthy maiden is dark. She is swarthy. The sun has burned me. My mother's sons were angry with me. They made me caretaker of the vineyards, but I've not taken care of my own vineyard. Maybe that's why she seems to be leading goats later on. She wasn't any good in the vineyard, so they put her with the goats. Not sure about that. Tell me, O you whom my soul loves, where do you pasture your flock? Where do you make it lie down at noon? For why should I be like one who veils herself besides the flocks of your companions? Where does she want to be? She wants to be next to this guy's sheep, his flock. Where's your flock? So verse 8's the answer. What's the answer? And there's nothing that says this is how this is supposed to be interpreted, but when I read this, it's like this. In verse 7, she's asking, where's your flock? I don't want to lie down with somebody else's sheep. I want to be where your sheep are. Well, if you don't know, most beautiful among women, go forth on the trail of the flock. Pasture your goats by the tents of the shepherds. Oh, you don't know where I am? I think you'll find out, kind of a thing. You read into it what you want, but that's what it looks like to me. To me, my darling, you're like my mare among the chariots of Pharaoh. Now, how does that translate into a compliment today? You look like this female horse, I know. Yes. Yes, absolutely. There won't be a better one in the land than that one. You have to read this in its context. Things have changed. Remember how people dressed in the Victorian age with the collars up to here and the skirts down to there, and that was beauty. And then you look at this, the artistic works of Rome, and you see how they pictured women. Did you notice how they pictured women? They weren't the Barbie dolls that you see in magazines today. Those women were painted. They were much more, they were bigger women. So the concept of beauty and what is wonderful in that way changes from time to time and culture to culture. So he's using imagery that in the day would have been the most complimentary. Wait until, because they're going to describe each other here in a little while. She's going to describe him, he's going to describe her. As a matter of fact, he describes her a couple of different times in this. But let's get down to chapter 2, verse 1, where he says, I am the rose of Sharon, the lily of the valleys. What's that sound like? We have a song, don't we? I think we sang it last week. Jesus, rose of Sharon. Yeah, bloom forevermore. Where does this imagery come from? Well, here's where Solomon talks about, I'm the lily of the valley. And then if you look at Isaiah, a couple of passages in Isaiah where this idea of a flowering land is used to picture Israel as it is loved by God. In Isaiah 35, Somebody read the first two verses of Isaiah 35. Who's got that and wants to read? Isaiah 35, 1 and 2. Anybody? Because I'll read it. Okay, Shannon.
The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God.
All right. The wilderness and the desert are going to be glad. Now, we know that's not possible because wildernesses and deserts don't have personalities like people, but we get the imagery. What's going to show that's gladness? What's that? What's going to be the expression of gladness? What are we going to look at and see? We're going to see the flowers, the flowering of the land. That's what he's pointing out here in the first two verses of Isaiah 35. So when Solomon is described as the lily of the valley, the rose of Sharon, we're looking at creations of beauty that are not of men. There's something higher there, something better. And when Israel, in its right relationship with God, is described as a flowering land, we get that same idea. Hosea did similarly in chapter 14. Let's see, Hosea, that's the first of the minor prophets, if you're not familiar with the minor prophets. This is what he says. Chapter 14, verse 4, I will heal their apostasy. What is apostasy, by the way?
Speaking against the truth, backsliding.
Yeah, when you leave the truth, when you go off on a tangent away from God, that's apostasy. And so God says, I will heal their apostasy. I will love them freely. My anger has turned away from them. I will be like the dew to Israel. He will blossom like the lily, and he will take root like the cedars of Lebanon. His shoots will sprout. Isaiah and Hosea both wrote after Solomon would have written the Song of Solomon, but we see the same imagery used of a flowering land, that beauty that is to be desired, and that's what we're seeing here in the Song of Solomon.
Not and once not is because God takes care of it.
Yes, so Jesus used that same imagery in the Sermon on the Mount to picture how better dressed could you be than clothed like the lilies of the field. Very good. Glad you brought that up. Chapter 3 seems to be like a dream sequence. Chapter 3, verse 1. On my bed, night after night, I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but did not find him. I must arise now and go about the city in the streets and in the squares. I must seek him whom my soul loves. Who does that at night? What girl says, I'm going to get up in the middle of the night and walk through the streets of town to find my lover? Well, he's not going to be there. He's probably going to be home. So get your phone, give him a call. No, but to me, this seems to be a dream thing where she's dreaming on her bed of her lover. And do you remember what it was like to be young and you had somebody you were interested in? What did you think about as you went to sleep? Well, if you didn't think about them, you're weird, because that's what we do. When you have somebody who's a romantic interest and you're young and you're thinking, oh, especially, back in the days of grade school and high school, I wonder if she likes me. I like her. I don't know if she likes me or not. I think her friend likes me, but I don't want her friend like me too much, because if her friend likes me too much, then she'll like me and she won't like me. It's all this crazy stuff. But this is hearkening back to that same kind of an idea. This is the exciting romantic desire when she lays down at night. I sought him, but I didn't find him. I must arise now and go about the city in the streets and in the squares. I must seek him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but I didn't find him. The watchmen who make the rounds in the city found me. I said, have you seen him whom my soul loves? Scarcely had I left them when I found him whom my soul loves. I held on to him and would not let him go until I had brought him to my mother's house and into the room of her who conceived me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles of the hinds of the field, that you do not arouse or waken my love until she pleases. What's happened in verse 5? Verse 5 is a transition. The first 4 verses is her dream, but her lover is saying to her maidens as she's sleeping, don't wake her up. She's dreaming about me. That's how I see this. And I know it's got to be that way because when I thought, I got to go to the commentaries and see, and they said the same thing I said. So it's got to be real. That's the way I like to do it, by the way. I read the text and I come up with my own interpretation, and then if I'm not really terribly comfortable with that, I'll go to the commentaries, see what they say. And you have a pretty good idea if the commentary agrees with you, man, they're pretty smart. But that's how I see this. There's another one of these, by the way. It'll come in chapter 5. If you want to go to chapter 5, we can go ahead and see it right now. Verse 2, Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 2. I was asleep, but my heart was awake. A voice, my beloved, was knocking. Open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my perfect one, for my head is drenched with dew, my locks with the damp of the night. I've taken off my dress. How can I put it on again? I've washed my feet. How can I dirty them again? Does this sound familiar? Do you remember what Jesus talked about? If the guy's in his house and his neighbor knocks on the door and says, hey, I need some bread. I got some company that's come by unexpectedly. And he says, well, I can't get up now. The door's shut. My kids are in bed with me. So this is similar to that. But look, she has a change of heart. My beloved extended his hand through the opening, and my feelings were aroused for him. I arose to open to my beloved, and my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with liquid myrrh on the handles of the bolt. I opened to my beloved, but he was gone. Tell me that's not just like a dream. That's all right. My heart went out to him as he spoke. I searched for him, but I did not find him. Can you see her in her dream running through the streets in the middle of the night? I called, but he did not answer me. The watchmen who make the rounds in the city found me. They struck me and wounded me. The guardsmen of the walls took away my shawl from me. So she's dreaming about this, and you see her anxiety, her desire to be with him, but she can't. There's something blocking the way. And I don't know about proper interpretations of this, but when I read this, I think, okay, I can see that. How many of us have anxiety about our relationship with God? We think, okay, I've done everything the Bible tells me to do, but I still don't feel like God and I are tight. Maybe this is what's going on here. Maybe we're getting a prophetic sense of this, that it doesn't matter. He loves you, and just because you've dreamed something about it that's not accurate, that doesn't mean anything about reality. That's just all in your head. I'm not sure about all this, but it's interesting. And I like this because it makes me think. It makes me wonder, what is this all about? It's a given that this is from God. It's a given that this is about two people who are engrossed in each other and passionately interested in each other. But how does this play out? Any observations or comments so far? All right. Well, I was hoping you'd help me out, but I guess if you're not, I'll just keep on. Yeah.
Is this real reality on both their part? Is it just her thinking that she loves him or he actually loves her? It's not a dream, but, you know, the reality part of that, he's really not here.
In her dream, he's not there, but he really is there, and he really does desire her. And this is what we see. Let's see. Where is the description? She's going to describe him here in chapter 5. He will describe her in chapter 7. So let's look at these descriptions and see what they think of each other. Chapter 5, verse 9. Let's just take it slowly through here and see what she says of him. What kind of beloved is your beloved? O most beautiful among women. What kind of beloved is your beloved that thus you adjure us? My beloved is dazzling and ruddy. What does ruddy mean? Ruddy? Reddish of complexion? What does it say of David's complexion? He was ruddy. So she's talking about David's son. Yeah, ruddy. He's dazzling. He's ruddy. Outstanding among 10,000. His head is like gold, pure gold. His locks are like clusters of dates and black as a raven. His eyes are like doves beside streams of water, bathed in milk and reposed in their setting. I feel like such a sissy reading this. But this is her view of him. And he's just so beautiful. You know, guys, how do we want to be described? Oh, he's tall, strong, muscular, he's handsome and dashing. No, your eyes are like doves. Your hair's like a cluster of dates. Okay, all right. His cheeks are like a bed of balsam. What does balsam have to do with anything? A balsam fir? What do you note about a balsam fir? The aroma. Yeah, the aroma. And there's a lot of that in this. There's a lot of those smelly things. Banks of sweet-scented herbs. His lips are lilies dripping with liquid myrrh. His hands are rods of gold set with beryl, and his abdomen is carved ivory inlaid with sapphires. You think she likes this guy? Yeah, well, actually sapphires are blue. Yeah, blue spots. I don't know which is worse, green spots or blue spots. But it's carved ivory. Hey, talk about a six-pack, I guess. His legs are pillars of alabaster set on pedestals of pure gold. His appearance is like Lebanon, choice as the cedars. And that was the reference to Lebanon. When you talk about Lebanon, you're talking about the great cedars of Lebanon that you cut. And what do you know about cedar when you build with it? It smells good. What else? It lasts for a long time. It's choice wood for everything. Keeps the moths away from, yeah, they don't even like it, those no good little, and that's the imagery that Jesus used about the things of this world. Don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust corrupts. But if you're using cedar, you don't have to worry about the moths. Interesting how this all comes together. His mouth is full of sweetness, and he is wholly desirable. This is my beloved, and this is my friend. Not just a love interest, but a relationship, a friend. Oh, daughters of Jerusalem. And then you get down to chapter 7. I don't mean to skip over verse 6, but just so we can see these two things together. And by the way, in verse 6, there's also some descriptive things mentioned about her there. But here we are in chapter 7. He's describing her. How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O prince's daughter. The curves of your hips are like jewels. Is it okay to talk about that in a Bible class? I guess if we're reading that out of the Bible, that's okay. Is this about lust? It's not about lust. It's not about the kind of lust that the world knows or introduces to us. This is about godly desire. This is about appreciation for what God has given. When we look in the world and we see things of beauty that God's made, don't you think he expects us to look at those things and go, wow, isn't this great? And we all have different images of what's beautiful. How many of you just glance in the evening towards the west and you see the colors in the sky and you just have to stop for just a minute? Wow. And it's almost frustrating because it's so beautiful and you can't bring it to yourself. It's just there and you have to appreciate it in that moment, and that's all you got until you wait for the next evening and the next time. Or maybe you get up early and you see a sunrise, and it's the same thing with a sunrise, only on the other side of the earth. It's not actually a sunrise, it's actually an earth roll, but that doesn't sound nearly as romantic. So, because you understand, we'll talk about that later. But this is beauty that is to be appreciated. There's nothing wrong in this. And I also believe that what God is doing for us is showing us that in marriage, we're supposed to appreciate each other. What is it that Paul wrote to the church in Corinth in chapter 7, 1 Corinthians chapter 7? He said, to avoid fornication, let every man do what? Have his own wife, and for every woman to do what? Have her own husband. Now, so if you're getting married to avoid fornication, what must be involved in marriage? There must be some sexual satisfaction involved there, because that's what that's all about. Oh, okay. Well, who made sex? God did. And he said, here's one of the best blessings I'm going to give you. This will help you procreate. You can keep your line going, but it's also, it's so much fun in its context. And we understand that. And we know it's abused so many times, we sort of pull back. Oh, we're not going to talk about sex. No, we better talk about sex. If you want to get it right, you better talk about it. If you want to do it God's way, you got to think about it. You got to make some plans. Couples have to talk about this, and if couples don't talk about this, there's going to be a lot of frustration and upset in the marriage. There's got to be some communication going on that this is good. Yes?
The point here, the intimacy of husband and wife, the long longevity of life together, all these descriptions of her, and at death, when we say he was a great grandfather, father, brother, sister, whatever, and the wife says he was my best friend.
Right.
You know, that caps it all right there. You know, regardless of what life has done for us or what we've progressed through, he was my best friend.
Right. And see, women they'll focus on that idea more than the men, because men, we're mostly about sex. That's just the way it is. Women want relationship. That's what women are looking for. Sex will be something to get to the relationship, but for women, and you women, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for most women, this is it. They want a relationship with a man. They just don't want sex. Guys want sex. They got to do the relationship to get the sex. We think, well, that's not really the way it should be, but if we weren't that way, what would happen to us? We would cease to fulfill one another. And when we understand this, when a guy understands, okay, she wants relationship. So as somebody who cares about her, that's what I need to give her. I need to talk to her, because that's how you build a relationship. You talk. Talk about what? Something profound? No. How was your day? What do you think about this weather? Are you satisfied with the car we've got? Do you think we should do anything with the yard? Anything. Women are like this. They're just receptors, and they're just waiting for a guy to take enough interest in her to talk about anything in the world with her. And it doesn't really matter what it is. Now, you women correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm obviously not a woman. But this seems to me to be the truth through years of careful research. And none of us guys are going to get this just exactly right. But this is the approach, and this is the basic truth about it. And when I say guys are interested in sex, I'm not trying to put guys down and say there's something wrong with guys. That's a natural urge that we have. And it motivates us to do whatever we need to do to satisfy that need. And if we need to buckle down and say, all right, she wants a relationship, that's where I'm going with this, then that's what we'll do. And we see this couple in the Song of Solomon who have such a desire for one another that when you read through this, you can't imagine either one of them ever doing anything out of line with the other. Both of them not only have such an admiration for the physical aspects, but for the deeper, more meaningful aspects of the reality of who they are. And so they're tight. They're close. They want to be. Where are we here? Chapter 7? How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O princess daughter. The curves of your hips are like jewels, the work of the hands of an artist. Amen to that. Your navel is like a round goblet which never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is like a heap of wheat fenced about with lilies. Remember, cultural context and what's beautiful. Because if a guy said that today, he'd probably get smacked. Your belly's like a heap of wheat. Wow. Okay. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like a tower of ivory. Your eyes like pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath-rabbim. Your nose is like the tower of Lebanon. Remember, cultural context there, which faces towards Damascus. Your head crowns you like caramel. Caramel, what's caramel? And we're not talking about the sweet stuff that you make by boiling sugar. Carmel was a mountain. It was a beautiful mountain. And everybody knew Mount Carmel. What do you look at when you're out in Colorado? You look at the mountains. That's where the beauty is. You remember, you ever drive through on I-70? You're coming out of Denver and you come through that, what is that? What's the name of that pass up there? It's a little pass and you just come through, boom, there's the snow-capped Rocky Mountains. It's like, whoa, that's Carmel. Where are we here? Your head crowns you like caramel, and the flowing locks of your head are like purple threads. The king is captivated by your tresses. Just your hair is so beautiful that I'm captivated by it, he says. How beautiful and how delightful you are, my love, with all your charms. Your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. I said, I will climb the palm tree, and I will take hold of its fruit stalks. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine, and the fragrance of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine. That's pretty descriptive. That's pretty romantic. I have to admit, I've never really written anything just like that to describe anybody. But maybe that's what I need to think about. Years ago, I did write something for Debbie, and she put it in a frame and kept it. It was how much I appreciated her as a wife and mother, because she's got so many great qualities. And if you don't live with her, you may not see all those great qualities because she's kind of a private person, but she still has that. And that says something to me. All right, Marty, do some more of that. Use your imagination. Because we will use our imaginations to do a lot of things in life, but what we need to use our imaginations on, perhaps most of all, is our relationships. What can I do to make this relationship better? And what's the most important relationship? It's mine with God. What can I do to make that relationship better? What's the only one secondary to that? It's mine with my wife. What's under that one? Our kids. So if we think about what Solomon is saying here, and the attraction and the passion and the desire, not the desire to have this person, but the desire to be one with this individual is what we're looking at. It's really beautiful. And it's not the kind of tawdry romance we see in the world today. This is pure and clean and good. And this is the view that we're getting. This is inspired. This is something that God has provided for us. And it's a lovely thing. Not terribly macho. Unless my view of macho is somehow flawed. Do you think that's possible? Maybe this really is macho. All right, chapter 8. Oh, that you were like a brother to me who nursed at my mother's breasts. If I found you outdoors, I would kiss you. No one would despise me either. I would lead you and bring you into the house of my mother who used to instruct me, and I would give you spiced wine to drink from the juice of my pomegranate. What's she saying? Yeah. She's saying there's something about this relationship that at this point, people are going to talk if I get too close to you, but I want to be close to you. I wish you were my brother, because if I was with my brother, people wouldn't say anything. Oh, she's hanging out with her brother. Well, yeah, no, nothing strange about that. But he's not her brother. Bring you in my home. That's what we want to do, isn't it? When you find that one special person, you want to bring them home, take them home to mama. Let his left hand be under my head and his right hand embrace me. This is like a refrain. It's been said earlier, but it's coming up again. Let his left hand be under my head and his right hand embrace me. How specific is that? That's pretty specific. His left hand under my head, his right hand embrace me. I'm taking notes, by the way. I want you to swear, O daughters of Jerusalem, do not arouse or awaken my love until she pleases. Have you seen that before? Yeah, twice before. Until she pleases, until it's time for her to wake up. Just like when your alarm went off this morning, did that please you? Okay, yeah. See, we can relate. That's the worst sound in the world is my alarm going off. It's like, ka. So don't wake her up until she wants to wake up. She's dreaming. She's having the great imagery in her mind. Robin.
What I'm understanding that's believe is that you don't rush love. You don't go about it.
Right.
You can wait for it to develop the way it should. So that's what I'm understanding that part to me is that she's warning others, don't be reckless, wait for it to develop.
And don't we do that? Don't we want to push things and make things happen? And it's like when you plant a seed in the ground, what's the next thing you can do? You can water it. What next? You can wait. You can wait because you can't make anything happen. Do you remember, did any of you when you were young, did you try to make things happen in some kind of a romantic relationship? You can't do that. So what does that tell us? To me, I think Robin's right on. What does it tell us about our relationship with God? If this has anything to say about our relationship with God and his relationship with us, what does this tell us? Anything at all? All right. Now, can we take steps to improve or deepen? Of course. But everything takes time. Everything takes time. This is all about relationship. And relationship takes time. There's nothing about this that's mechanical. It takes time. You have to. Yes, you've got to want.
Appreciate it, whatever, because if it's one of the just happens or frequent or whatever, it doesn't mean anything. It's like somebody gives you something, it doesn't mean as much as if you work real hard to get whatever. You appreciate it more, you take care of it, it means more.
Right, and here are two people in this 8 chapters who really want each other, not in a lustful, dirty, tawdry way, but they want each other because they believe that the other will fulfill them, and that's God with us. I still can't imagine why he wants us, but he does. Will?
To reference on that, to go back just a little bit where he mentions I will climb the palm tree and I will take hold of its fruit stalks. Well, is it easy to climb a tree?
Well,
no, it's not always
not for
easy.
me.
There's effort that needs to be made there. And I think in a relationship, that effort is the communication. They need to make the effort to communicate, not just on the things that they want to talk about, but the things that she wants to discuss, the things that interest her.
Good point.
Because if it's just, let's talk about the car, let's talk about the engine, let's talk about, whatever you want to talk about, might not necessarily pique her interest, but if you're talking about things that she's interested in or things that are important to her, that will pique her interest into dialogue with you, and it'll make that effort and it'll grow that relationship more.
Right. And you can let her guide the conversation. This is fascinating. I'm learning so much about stuff. I should have read this 40 years ago. And just, John?
The significance of climbing a palm tree is unique unto itself as opposed to just about any other tree, because it doesn't have the limbs like an oak, mesquite, olive, cedar, or whatever. You got one stalk to go up, and it's very painful to go up a tree, a palm tree.
What are you trying to say, John?
It's work.
Yeah, it's work. Not the pain aspect, but
It's not easy. Is
Right.
the whole point of that.
that's what Will was saying. Yeah, you guys are on the same vein there, talking about you got to put some effort into this. How much effort has God put into having a relationship with us? Really, the bill? What has God done? And all of the Bible, the history from beginning to end, because even from before the creation, God created the world knowing that there would be sin and that he would have to reclaim this. There would have to be some kind of reconciliation. And he went through everything he went through, paid everything he needed to pay, and is still working with us to bring about reconciliation. So when we see him making that kind of an effort, it provokes us to make that same kind of effort. And that's what I see in the Song of Solomon. So I hope this has been helpful this morning. It's been helpful to me to be looking into it. But any observations or comments as we close this morning? Don?
We should never have to wonder if our spouse has feelings for us or not.
Right.
We should know by how we can treat them. If I'm ever wondering if my wife is having feelings for me, it's probably because I'm giving my best to others rather than her. And I'm so pull away from my interests and what I'm trying to do. Giving my best to outside sources rather than my spouse. And so you can tell. Just ask yourself, what am I doing to make him feel?
Right.
What am I doing for him to make him feel for me?
Right.
And I know that we can, a we can gird up our loins and say, man, I'm gonna stay married no matter what, you know, we're not supposed to. But if you want to develop it, keep it, and make it easy, then you die to yourself. You know, when you're dating, it's all easy.
Excellent point.
You die to yourself to get what you want, and you get what you want, and you go, oh, well, now I gotta do all this other stuff, you know, so always gotta develop it. You've always gotta water it, so to speak. Even after it becomes a tree,
Right.
you gotta keep watering it.
Water, prune it, everything. So with that being true, and I believe it is, what does that say about our relationship with God? Because this isn't just a book about relationships between married couples. It's a book about our relationship with God. If we ever feel like, well, I don't know if God cares about me, what do you do? With that parallel, well, you start pursuing God. You start doing the things that you need to do to pursue Him. What might some of those things be?
Open up your Bible.
Okay, open up your Bible for one thing. That's a very obvious given. What's another one? Pray, communicate. What's another thing? I think this is the third one, is the one I'm thinking of, is one we overlook a lot. Okay, meditate, that's a good one. That's not the one I'm thinking of. That's a really good one. Obey, obey. If you read your Bible, well, God's telling me, I need to go do this. Nothing expresses faith more than you acting on what God says. If my wife says, as she does, what do you want for your birthday dinner? And I say lasagna, what's she going to do to express her love for me? She's going to make 3 pans of it. 3 pans of lasagna. So when God says, I want to have a relationship with you, but you need to understand this is the right way to live. And I look at that, what He says, okay, then I'm going to do that because I want to have a relationship with you. And I want a relationship to be good. And I don't want it to be based on you tolerating what I want to bring to the relationship. I want it to be based on this is what we both want together, and we both want it together because it's right. It is stinking right. That's what it all comes down to. Okay. Anything else? I got to admit, this has gone a lot better than I thought it would. I appreciate you guys. Class dismissed.